Hello, my friend. This is Clyde. This is a true story. I'm reading from 2 Corinthians 4, verses 16 through 18. Therefore, we do not lose heart. Even though our outward man is perishing, yet the inward man is being renewed day by day. For our light affliction, which is but for a moment, is working for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory, while we do not look at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporary, but the things which are not seen are eternal. One other text from 2 Corinthians 5, verses 6 through 8. So we are always confident, knowing that while we are at home in the body, we are absent from the Lord. For we walk by faith, not by sight. We are confident, yes, well pleased rather, to be absent from the body and to be present with the Lord. Let me take you back in ancient Bible history and let us look at the Bible character called Abraham. Abraham was described as a friend of God. Abraham and God had a special relationship, and one day God told this man that he would become the father of a vast nation. At that time, Abraham did not have any children. God also told this man that he would not just become the father of this great nation, but that God was going to give him and this great nation a special land as their permanent home. Well, you should know that God and us humans, we do not see time the same way. And so it took a very long time for these promises to come true. But every one of them came. In fact, at one stage, God told Abraham that his family would be strangers in for 400 years where they will be made into slaves, but that he, God, would liberate them one day and lead them to this promised land. That happened exactly as promised, and Abraham and his descendants, they lived their lives waiting to go to this land that God had chosen for them. In fact, Hebrews 11 and verse 10 says, "For he was looking forward to the city with foundations, whose architect and builder is God." What does this have to do with you? It is the blueprint, my friend, of your story, and the story of any one of us who is a child of God. Once you become a child of God, you enter into this relationship that starts here on earth. As a child of God, there is a body of promise that is rock solid true. God says that at the end of this life, every one of his children will come to live with him in heaven. In fact, while Jesus was here on earth, he said it in very clear language. "Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may be also." Here's the interesting part that is so similar to Abraham's story. He had to take God's word for it. There was no legal document that showed that Abraham was going to get this special land for him and his descendants. Besides, God told him that his large family, too numerous to count, will find themselves living in a different country where they will be made into slaves for 400 years. And then a day would come when God will lead them to the promised land. And what proof did Abraham have that all of that was believable? That all of this would happen even after he dies? Nothing. Nothing except God's word. Here is a secret, and I know it does not make sense to some people, but this is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Abraham lived by faith. That's it, Clyde? Yeah. Abraham believed in God, and Abraham believed that God spoke to him, and Abraham believed that everything that God told him, that it would come true. Abraham had never seen God in person. Abraham did not know what God looked like, but everything God told him, he believed it because he had faith. Faith in God means that although you cannot see him, you believe that he is, and that what he says is true. Faith is the assurance that although we cannot see it, it really exists or it will happen. Faith is blind trust in God. And even to talk about God, that's faith. That was Abraham. But here is the interesting piece. After Abraham heard these things from a God he could not see, every promise that God gave him came true, including his generations or his offsprings were led out of Egyptian slavery after 400 years, and they inherited Canaan, which is modern day Israel. So let us talk about you and me. The text tells us that this life, temporary as it is, comes with some hardship and some pain, some trials and some trouble. We age, we grow old, and the older we grow is the more we see this body deteriorating. Well, some of us deteriorate slower than others, but sickness, loss of possessions, loss of ability to do things, all points to the reality that this is coming to an end one way or the other. It is true for everybody, but for the child of God, for that person who has a faith relationship with God, it is different. It is like Abraham and his descendants. The faith of the child of God tells him that better days are coming, that when this life ends, however it ends, we get to go to live with the Lord, and that will be forever. Let's say it another way. The longer we live, we are one day closer to coming into the promise of living with God forever. And here's the big thing. When that day comes and you leave this earth to go live with Jesus, it will be a forever thing. Faith says that it will come true. You might not have any legal documents to support that, but in your heart you can believe it. It might seem nonsensical to some people, but faith tells you that you can look for a city built by God, a place where you will go to one of these days. Your faith therefore tells you that you should be more delighted for what your future holds and less about what you currently have. Your future is promised. Although you cannot see it, it is promised and it is going to happen. There is no end to that life. But remember that as a child of God, like Abraham and his descendants, we now live by faith, not by what we can see. One day, our faith will turn to sight. And this, my friend, is a true story.